What's going on, Failroaders? I'm Joshua Thomas, and I am once again here to talk more about Final Fantasy VII. We're going to be talking about the OG, a little bit of remake, and then what things could mean for Rebirth in this episode. And we're specifically talking about why do we care about Tifa or Aerith with Cloud? You know, like, what's this Cloti, Claerith debate, and why are FF7 fans so into it? So, like, if you get into the wrong thread or the wrong video into the comment section, you can find some pretty heated debates. And so I'm hoping it's not going to get that heated in the comments for this video, but I do want to hear your thoughts, and I'll have some questions for you throughout this video. If you're joining us in the live chat, feel free to answer in the live chat as well. And I want to make this specific as well. In this video, I'm not going to be discussing who Cloud should be with. I'm mainly going to be discussing why we have such heavy opinions on, oh, Cloud should be with Aerith and here's why, or Cloud should be with Tifa and here's why. It's more about, I guess, the meta. It's what is it about this game that makes us want to debate this so heavily and that has divided the Final Fantasy VII audience so much. So let's get started. I quickly jotted down a few notes. I've been thinking about this for a while now. I've been thinking about making this video. I couldn't decide whether I wanted to edit it or do it live, and I'm just like, you know what, I just want to do this live. I want to talk something about Final Fantasy VII because editing videos right now has gotten really slow because I'm playing God of War Ragnarok and I'm absolutely loving it. But so let's talk about the first thing here, and number one is both girls are likable. Now, I also want to say that it goes way, way more into just Tifa and Aerith both being likable characters. But for all intents and purposes, they are very likable characters. They're both technically lead females in this game. And the game definitely makes you feel that way, but the game also really doesn't tell you, oh, this is the lead female, or this is the lead female. Whereas other Final Fantasy other Final Fantasy games in the franchise and other games in general, whenever they have main characters like this, and whether you're playing a female who's going to have a male love interest or a male that's going to have a female love interest, it's usually obvious to the player. And in this game, it could go either way, especially when you don't know the outcome. There are going to be, I'm probably going to get into spoilers later on in this video, so just a warning on that, just a quick spoiler warning. But it's also interesting when you learn the history behind the making of Final Fantasy VII, the original game. The original game, 3 characters were developed at the very outset when they were first creating this character. Cloud, of course, was the lead male. Barrett was his sidekick, or his counterpart, so to speak. And then they wrote a lead female, and that lead female was Aerith. And during the development, the devs decided that they wanted someone later on in the game to die, because once again, FF7 is very much about death and dealing with death. And so they said, we can't let it be Cloud because he's the main character. He's who this is about. If he dies later on in the story, we can't just swap to a different main character like, oh, hey, guess what? Now you're playing this guy. They decided that it couldn't be Barrett because Barrett would be too obvious of a choice to, be someone who makes the ultimate sacrifice during the story of Final Fantasy VII. And so that's when they landed on Aerith. They said, you know what? No one will expect her to be the one who sacrifices herself or who has to give up her life. And then they were like, but you know what? we still need another lead female if that's the case then. And so that's when they said, we're going to write in another lead female who ended up being Tifa. And when you play the game, you can't tell. You can't tell that one was written before the other. They're both so well implemented into the game that it really comes down to your own personality and your own choices. And that's another thing I think that is the reason why we have such a heavy debate, is because different people are going to be attracted to these two females in different ways. I've seen people in discussions about this talking about how they liked one female over the other because they saw traits in that female that either represented, that they felt represented them, or that represented traits that they desired, that they wished that they themselves had. So Tifa being a strong individual who can defend herself, Aerith being this really bubbly personality in spite of her tragic past. In fact, Tifa, being as strong as she is, having recovered from all those things that have happened to her in the past as well. Both of these women are strong, but they're strong in different ways, and they're also likable in different ways as well. Aerith is sort of it's kind of weird. Like, you would say Tifa's the girl next door, but then Aerith is also sort of the girl next door as well, in that, you expect in the very beginning, oh, hey, Tifa's going to be Cloud's only love interest because they were childhood friends. And then here comes Aerith, who all of a sudden throws a wrench into that. And it's very obvious throughout the OG and in Remake that at different points in the game, Cloud is absolutely attracted to both of these girls. He's absolutely attracted to both of them for different reasons as well. Going on into the development of the game and the characters in the game, one thing that I definitely believe goes into why there's such a strong debate here is that unlike lots of other games out there where you can choose a relationship, you can choose who your main character has a relationship with, the original Final Fantasy VII, to my knowledge, and to this day, I believe, is the first game that I ever played where you had a choice, but the game didn't tell you you had a choice. Nowhere in the game did it have some sort of relationship status. It didn't have any kind of, the choices you make now are going to affect you later, that a lot of games have nowadays. And so when you play the OG, and when you play Remake as well, you go through it assuming that, you're just making these choices for fun, especially back in the, 1997 when this game first came out, because oftentimes, making choices like this didn't have too much of an impact. So you go through the game, you play it, and I've seen lots of people playing the Remake who have never played the OG, who go through it not realizing that some of the choices that they're making is actually affecting this secret sort of love interest meter. And so when you get to these scenes that are affected by this secret meter or this secret stat, you don't realize that you have actually made a choice. You just go through it like the date at the Gold Saucer. When I got to it in the OG, I just assumed that you went on a date with Aerith. I had no idea that my choices led to that date with Aerith. I had no idea that, new players who played Remake who really didn't know anything about Final Fantasy VII, when they got to the resolution scene in Chapter 14, they didn't know that it was their choices throughout the game that determined whether they got a scene with Tifa, a scene with Aerith, or a scene with Barrett, which is much rarer, of course. In the OG, you could also have a date with Yuffie and with Barrett as well. And of course, Yuffie and Barrett were the tougher of the 4 options to get, and of course, Barrett's the tougher of the 3 options in Remake. So that's one of the big things, is the game simply doesn't tell you. And I can think of other games like Skyrim, and this one I haven't played, but Mass Effect. You kind of have this idea that, oh, well, this is my choice, and I can replay the game again and make other choices. But there's also a third thing going on here, and that is that we sort of impose ourselves onto Cloud Strife in the OG and in Remake. And so we also want Cloud to be happy as well. Anytime we play as a character, we want them to be happy. But due to Cloud's tragic past and the issues that he has, he is definitely an imperfect character. He has flaws that are very outward. He's very closed off. We want this guy to be happy, and when he encounters these 2 females, we see them, and we see how he acts around them, and we see, one of these 2 could make him happy. Which one would I be happy with? We impose ourselves onto main characters all the time. And in this case, we impose ourselves onto Cloud, meaning that our favorite of the 2 is who we want Cloud to be with. And in Final Fantasy VII and the Remake, we kind of get to choose. So let's use like Skyrim, games kind of like that. We don't ever get that feeling because the main character in Skyrim and those sorts of open world RPGs are kind of like blank slates. They're pretty much us. Fallout 3 and Fallout 4 are good examples. It's like you can choose to be good or bad, but at the end, the character is just sort of this empty vessel that you occupy. And that's why, in Skyrim, I was like, oh, I can marry a thief, or I can marry this werewolf chick. Sure, this is cool, I'll do that. But I wasn't emotionally invested, I did it because I was like, oh, cool, now they can be my companion and follow me around, or, something along that lines. Or it just increases our bond with each other. But when it comes to the characters of Final Fantasy VII, we genuinely want them to be happy. And so if I'm a guy who is really attracted to Tifa, I want Cloud, the main character, to also be really attracted to Tifa. I may subconsciously choose nicer choices with her, and I will end up dating her at the Gold Saucer, or getting her resolution scene in Remake. And so let's talk about what could happen in Rebirth. So we all know, if we've played the OG, that I'm sure the Gold Saucer date scene is going to be extremely anticipated. Seeing how well the devs handled Remake's wall market, I imagine the Gold Saucer was one of those contingencies where they were like, we can't screw up on this. We cannot screw up on the Gold Saucer. We've got to make this even bigger and better than wall market in Remake. So I look forward to seeing what kind of outcomes we get based on the choices that we make. I guarantee the Gold Saucer date scene is going to be in there. And I look forward to seeing how it changes with each character. This is even more so of an opportunity to really differentiate between the characters of Aerith and Tifa, as we saw in Remake that they had very different resolution scenes, Aerith, Tifa, and Barrett in Chapter 14. I imagine that if the devs do the same thing with the gold saucer in Rebirth, that we're going to love those sequences. And I really do hope that we get the choices. I do hope that we can have this awkward date with Yuffie if, somehow we get her. I hope that we can have this sort of, bros night out with Barrett, where it's, just kind of awkward, like, you've kind of become my best friend, but I don't know how to act with you, sort of thing. And I've said it in other videos. I think it'd be cool if we got Red 13, and people who have commented have said, wouldn't it be great if you just treated everyone like dirt? You got a date with Sid. I think that would be hilarious. Don't know, man, you would have to treat everyone like dirt. Another big area where I can see things happening is areas where I think that we may have options that lead to these different outcomes are definitely going to be on the ship leading from Junon to Costa del Sol, because we do get multiple chances to interact with all the characters, at least we did in the OG. That's another thing with the Gold Saucer date in the OG. In the OG, you pretty much go on the same journey. Like, you go to the play, and you end up being in the play at the theater. Then you go on the gondola ride. You run into Kate Sith, and you have that little chase. So I do hope that they differentiate things a little bit. Another area, so yeah, the ship, I could see something going on at Costa del Sol because that's sort of a vacation spot. So maybe the characters take a brief moment to relax, and maybe we make some choices there. It'll be interesting to see what happens in Gongaga. We've already discussed in another video that the devs have admitted that there will be locations, we're going to visit all the locations from the OG, but they're going to be out of order. So Gongaga was one of those ones where I was like, when are we going to get there? When are we going to get to the Gold Saucer? Which locations are going to be out of order from the path of the OG? I do hope that we go to Gongaga with Tifa and Aerith in the party, or that we just simply have some mandatory scenes, but also we make choices, and perhaps the choices that we've been making up to that point could also affect things. It's going to be... I can also see Nibelheim being an area where we can affect Tifa, or maybe get resolution scene with her in Nibelheim. That'll be another thing that's going to be interesting. Which characters, where are the side quest sections of Rebirth going to be? And who's the character we're going to have that we get some kind of unique scene with if we complete enough of the side quests? Is it even going to be like that in Rebirth? Is it going to be just completely overhauled, completely different, since we're going to have such a wider open world? Not necessarily open world, but like wide linear kind of thing. So, but that's it. That's what has made this such a debate for fans for the past so many years. And I do believe that the devs are absolutely taking this into consideration with Rebirth. They're going to continue to give us the choices, but not outwardly tell us, look, here's your affection meters for all of your characters, like in those story-driven games like Until Dawn, I think that's what it is, where it's like you actually get the affection meters for each of the characters and can see who likes who and all that kind of stuff. It'll once again, like, if someone jumps into Rebirth as their first experience with Final Fantasy VII, they're not going to know who the lead female is. It could be Aerith, it could be Tifa, it's not going to be Yuffie, but their choices, who they like, how these characters come off to them, and their want for Cloud and actually themselves to be happy are going to affect the outcomes, and they too will fall into the Aerith Tifa fan clubs and, you know, the Cloti Claerith fan clubs and the debates as well. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you will like this video if you enjoyed this topic, and check out more of our FailroadExpress Final Fantasy VII videos. There's one right up here. You can definitely check it out if you want to hear more topics and more fan theories. Thanks for watching, and check you guys next time.